Hey, this is Ryan of Happy Healthy Vegan, and a big shout out once again to my moderator Peter for finding me, what is like a third or fourth consecutive video I've made about the Daily Mail. I guess because it's January, hence Veganuary, and they're just on this anti-vegan campaign. But anyway, the latest outrageous, totally misinformation-filled headline of a story that the Daily Mail is made here that I'm responding to says, "Want to live to 100? Don't turn vegetarian. Meat eaters are more likely to hit the milestone." So apparently, if you want to live to be 100, step one, stop eating fruits and veggies and eat more meat, right? I mean, that's what it really sounds like. So anyway, let's take a look at what this study that they're basing this headline on really did, what it found out, how it was constructed, and see what a mangled mess that the Daily Mail intentionally made of this. First, a reminder, this is the Daily Mail, who has a long history of making sensationalized health headlines, particularly when there's an opportunity, like this one, to do a dunk on vegan and plant-based diets. The story claims, quote, "Avoiding meat could scupper," which is British slang apparently for like ruin your chances of reaching 100, and that vegetarians are unlikely to hit that milestone based on one new study in China. All right, already red flags should be going off. One study, you're making this extreme claim that eating meat's going to make you live to 100, eating plants going to prevent you from hitting that. You're basing this off one study? Just one single study? That's not how scientific consensus is made. And also studies done on people in China, and people in the West might not eat like people in China. And as we'll see here, it gets way worse than that when we look at what the actual Chinese people were. So anyway, here's what the actual study did in plain English. Researchers looked at older adults in China, already age 80 or above, from the Chinese Longitudinal Health Longevity Survey. They compared about 1,500 people who reached 100 years old with a few thousand who didn't, and they asked about their diet, including whether or not they were vegetarian. So this is not take a bunch of 20, 30, and 40-year-olds and randomize them to vegan and non-vegan diets and see who lives longer. Instead, it's an observational study done on very old people, older than 80, and they're at the tail end of their lives, and they're in a very specific country, and they're asked about what they eat for food. Meaning these very old Chinese people self-reported their diets in a questionnaire. And that age piece matters a lot. At 80 plus, you're at much higher risk of being underweight, frail, losing muscle, rather than overeating on Impossible burgers. The authors of the study themselves find that the so-called benefit of meat is mainly in underweight older adults. So yes, if you're like, say, 85, underweight, struggling to get enough calories, loosen muscle mass, that's what the study found, that people that fit that specific situation, eating meat did benefit these specific people. But that tells you absolutely nothing about whether if you adopted, like most of us did here, a vegan or vegetarian diet in your 20s, 30s, or 40s and maintain that into older age, whether or not that is beneficial, harmful, or neutral for you at that age, with regards to longevity specifically. So to be clear, this study that the Daily Mail is hailing as this be-all, end-all study about vegans not having longevity, this study doesn't tell you diddly squat about the scenario I just painted about people here in the West adopting vegan diets in their pre-80-year-old years and decades like ourselves here. But anyway, let's watch now very carefully how the Daily Mail spins this study. The paper says, in this group of very old Chinese adults, people categorized as vegetarian were less likely to become centenarians than omnivores, especially if they were underweight, and they recommended a balanced, high-quality diet that includes both plant and animal foods for this specific population. Just to be clear, I'm not promoting or supporting this recommendation that the study author said that these specific underweight old Chinese people should be eating meat. I'm just making clear what the study authors actually did say, because the Daily Mail says something entirely different. But the Daily Mail turns that into don't go vegan or vegetarian, as if some 25-year-old in Los Angeles or London were reading this story on their cell phone, and if they were to turn vegan, they would almost be certainly chopping years off their life. They'd never live to reach 100 years old. And that's certainly not what the authors of the study said or even implied or suggested, but that doesn't prevent the Daily Mail from running with their outrageously misleading headline. But it gets even worse. Here's my favorite part of the article that they pretty much try to bury. This same study reports that people who ate vegetables every day were 84% more likely to reach 100 compared to those who didn't. So the actual data scream, eat your vegetables daily if you want to live to be 100, 84% more likely. But the actual headline says, don't turn vegetarian. Like, what kind of world are we living in? Now, let's zoom out. We have multiple large cohort studies and meta-analyses comparing plant-based and vegetarian diets with predominantly meat diets over decades. And these typically find similar or slightly lower all-cause mortality in vegetarians and significantly lower risk of heart disease, sometimes on the order of 20 to 25% lower. But none of this broader, more scientific consensus-based information makes its way into the article because it would break their narrative that meat eaters are way more likely to live to 100. So if you strip away all the spin and bias and misleading information in this article, what does this study actually say? 1. Among Chinese adults who have already reached 80, especially those who are underweight, completely avoiding animal foods without careful planning may be associated with lower odds of reaching 100, probably because of protein energy, malnutrition, and frailty. 2. Eating vegetables every day is strongly linked with living to become 100 in this cohort. 3. Authors argue for a balanced, high-quality diet in the oldest old, not a carnivore diet and not a sweeping anti-vegetarian manifesto for the whole population. In other words, these are nuanced and age-specific points, not some kind of blanket sweeping general statement of don't turn vegan or vegetarian, because you're going to die young if you do. And this totally fits a pattern. Cheap, sleazy, shitty tabloids like the Daily Mail and their ilk do this all the time. They find one study, as good or bad as this study might be, but blow it completely out of proportion so they can get some sensationalistic headline how if you eat only plants, you're going to die young, your body's going to sprout a third head, who knows, whatever bullshit they want to say in their headlines. They get people fearful about ever even considering, let alone adopting a vegan, a vegetarian, or a plant-based diet. Again, to support what I just said there's a plethora of other studies that contradict what this one single study on really super old Chinese people found, that there's a body of evidence, a scientific consensus that a well-planned diet is nutritionally adequate and doesn't cause you to die prematurely young. But for some strange reason that I just can't figure out, the Daily Mail never ever bothers to refer or cite or mention those studies that I'm referring to in these hit pieces against vegan diets. I wonder why. I mean, do they just not know about it, or are they just dishonest people? The fact of the matter is the Daily Mail has zero evidence that people like us in the West who are not over the age of 80 adopting vegan or vegetarian diets much earlier in life than these 80-plus-year-old Chinese people, there's zero evidence that eating a balanced, sensible, well-planned vegan diet will not allow you the same chances of reaching to be a centenarian. In fact, the science shows that we have, at worst, the same odds as meat eaters do and probably better chances, but that doesn't get reported. Because the Daily Mail are either anti-vegans or seeking headline clicks or both, right? I mean, that's not incompatible. So once again, the big villain here isn't big broccoli or big potato or big banana. Instead, it's a sleazy business model that monetizes and prioritizes fear, misrepresents a single study on a very specific group at a very specific old age, and tries to make a blanket statement about don't go vegetarian, don't go vegan, you're gonna not live a long time. So, moderator Peter and anyone, if you see more stories like this in major media sleazy tabloids, drop them in the comments, let me know, because like I said last week, they're writing the scripts for me, and I was prophetic. It happened once again this week. So, thanks for watching all this way. If you want to share this story, it's Veganuary, let people know. And if you want some sensible, good information about Veganuary rather than these sleazy tabloids lying, say you're new and you're like, you found me, thank goodness you did, because you're not going to get a load of crap, and you're struggling and you're new, check out the Happy Healthy Vegan cookbooks. They've been on this permanent Black Friday / Veganuary sale price for a couple years now. So get yourself a copy and find some delicious, easy to make foods that you can make year in and year out. So for everyone else, I'll see you at this Friday's live stream, 6 p.m. Pacific time. Come, hang, be chill with all us vegans, and we'll get along. So until then, guys, remember, doesn't suck being vegan.